Welcome to the Chlorine King Podcast, where your host, Eric Taylor, will discuss tips for the do-it-yourselfer, answer listeners' questions, conduct product reviews, and host special guests from the pool industry. Grab your swimsuits and let's dive in.
Hey, welcome back everyone for another episode of the Chlorine King Podcast. I know it's been a while since my last episode. I've gone through some major structure and directional changes for the business, which has kept me incredibly busy. I also hired a new employee, so I've been busy with getting him on the road. He's doing great though, and very happy to have him on board. If you're running a business, guys, there comes a time when you have to quit stunting the growth and just let it flourish. For the last 2 years, I've purposely stayed small and given so much business away to the point of it making me sick. I've watched my good friend 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. He's the owner of Driven Power here in Pinellas. He's a master electrician, and he's just grown outrageously fast. We started our business around the same time, and we've done a lot of talking throughout the years. And by watching him grow, I finally just said one day, I'm going to let my company grow, and whatever happens, happens. All we can do at the end of the day is do our very best, and that's what I'm going to do. So that's where I've been lately. At this time, I'd like to recognize the sponsors for my show. The first one is the Riptide Pool Vacuum Systems. Get the very best cleaner and support on the market. Their blow-off proof bags and spacious cart system make for a much easier day for cleaning your pools. Get yours today at riptidevac.com. Also check out 𝐼𝐸 Pool Service software. Everything you need to keep track of your clients and pool business with an incorporated invoicing software. No need for several softwares to make your business function. You only need one, and that's 𝐼𝐸. Check them out at 𝐼𝐸.net. Before we get to our guest tonight, let's answer one of our listeners' questions, as we always do. Thomas asks, Eric, what is the difference between the different types of vacuum cleaners? I don't know which cleaner I need to get. Thanks for the question, Thomas. There's 3 types of floor cleaners on the market. You have your suction cleaners, your pressure cleaners, and your robotic cleaners. They all 3 work differently, and depending on the system you have will dictate which one you need to use. Down here in Florida, suction side cleaners are the most popular. They usually have a dedicated suction port near the skimmer, or you just plug it directly into the skimmer. It works off your existing pool pump and only works while the pool pump is running. It's ultra important to make sure the filter stays clean, because if it gets dirty and bogged down, so does your cleaner. Next, we have pressure side cleaners. They aren't really popular in my area, and the majority of them run off a dedicated booster pump. These work by the booster pump pushing water out to the vacuum and creating a Venturi effect to pick up the debris. And they have their own bag or canister to catch the debris, which you need to empty in between cleanings. The ultra important thing for these cleaners is to make sure it runs only during the pool pump hours and to make sure there's enough water in the pool. If the water gets low, you run the risk of burning both pumps out. And the pool pump is what supplies the water to the booster pump. So that's why you don't want the booster pump running outside of the pool pump hours, because it's just going to run hot and burn out. Finally, you have robotic cleaners. These are great because they don't run off your pool equipment at all, and it can actually run while the filtration system's completely off. They handle the largest debris much better than the other cleaners, but do have a harder time with the fine or sand and silt. They run completely independent, they have their own run program, and they're often the most expensive, but they're a great option if the budget allows. So I hope that answers your questions, Thomas. We love hearing your guys' questions, so keep them coming. Today's guests really don't need an introduction. If you listen to pool podcasts at all, I'll be willing to bet my unborn child that you've heard of them. They host the Pool Chasers podcast and have become great friends of mine. They had me on their show a while back, so I had to take the opportunity to have them on mine. So let's welcome Tyler and Greg.
So I'm really excited to have with me Greg and Tyler from the Pool Chasers. There's no introduction needed, but I'm excited to have them on. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Eric. What's going on? Good to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So why don't you guys introduce yourself and how you guys got in the industry and ultimately ended up here doing podcasts, which I understand is full time.
Yes, it is now. Well, I'm Tyler Rasmussen. We first got into the industry with Brothers Pool Service, and it was started about 6 years ago now. We started that. I was sitting at a desk job, and I was actually making pretty good money at it and had a lot of full-time benefits and a bunch of other good stuff. But I had this promotion come up that I got passed over for somebody that I didn't think deserved it. I thought that I really deserved this promotion, and they didn't. And that really bugged me. So I started told my wife, went home. I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to be in this company anymore. I don't know where I'm going to go from here, because that position only opened up every couple of years, and that was like the next step. So it's kind of stuck in this position in this company, and I was like, I really want to be able to do something where my hard work and work ethic come to play, and it's actually benefiting me and us as a family. So started looking in other avenues, stumbled upon pool service through a friend who bought a pool service route for an extra money, kind of, I guess, similar to your story a little bit, Eric, where, you had a friend that brought you along, because he brought me on his route and just started liking it. And I dove headfirst into it, understanding it. But it's part of the reason the podcast was born, because it's super difficult for me to find a lot of information out there 6 years ago. There's a lot more now even than there was then. So, trying to figure out how to start the company, how to do all this was very difficult. And, that's kind of, we'll talk about the podcast a little bit. That's kind of the main focus of it. But, we started the company with my actual little brother. He kind of got out in about 2 months. So that's how Brothers Pool Service was born. And then about a year later, I brought Greg along he came over for 4th of July. He went from California, and we went on this crazy day. It was after monsoon season here in Arizona. We have crazy big dust storms called haboobs, and they are literally look like you're, out in Egypt or something, some crazy, huge sandstorms. And anyway, so it was probably the roughest day still to date that we've ever cleaned pools. He rode along with me, but he saw the vision, and he's like, you know what, dude, this is really cool that you started this own thing and you have your own thing going on. So long story short, I'll let him tell more if he wants to, but we came together about a year later after that, and it's kind of been history from there, but I'll let him kind of talk about that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's kind of a unfortunate situation, but kind of really liked what my brother Tyler was doing back here in Arizona. And I worked for the Department of Defense for about 8 years doing different types of jobs. And I was taking on all the training and all that stuff so I could, move on up and, make more money and get more benefits and all that good stuff. And it just came to a point, I had that real entrepreneur spirit and didn't want to work for the man anymore. I wanted to go out and kind of create my own destiny. I had started a face mask company that's, really where I learned how to kind of be an entrepreneur and how to use social media. I was on Instagram when it first came out and started utilizing that to sell masks, and was going to trade shows and going to outdoor swap meets and things like that. So I learned a lot about that kind of stuff. Me and Ty were talking and pretty much came to the conclusion that I would leave the job and leave working for the Department of Defense and move out to Arizona and do the pool business with them. I actually ended up getting a promotion to San Diego. So it was probably one of the most difficult decisions to make, but I ended up taking the promotion, and I told Ty that I wasn't going to be able to come out to Arizona, and packed up, sold my house, packed up my wife and my youngest daughter, went to Poway, San Diego, and went through orientation on the first day, and was sitting up in the boss's office. And I just, always remember this, just looking out into the vast ocean behind us at Camp Pendleton. And I told him, you know what, I appreciate the opportunity, but this isn't the place for me. And I hadn't even talked to Ty yet about anything. I was just hoping that he would accept my apology and just kind of, let me come out there and be a part of it with him. So I left there, and I remember calling him on the phone. I'm like, hey, I pretty much just went through orientation, first day of work, and I just decided that this wasn't for me. Where I'm supposed to be is out there with you in Arizona, growing this pool business together. And it's just, it was so much, but I think Ty, more than anybody, knows that I just do things that are unexpected, I guess. So, he was willing to have me on the team, and that was all good. So I ended up packing the family after being in San Diego a week and making our way to Arizona. Didn't have a job lined up because he was working at a motor shop at Swim Pool Warehouse with a good friend, Ed Friend, which was on Pool Chasers podcast. And I needed a job as well because Brothers was not at a point to where either one of us could do it full time. So that was another thing. I had to find a job as well on top of learning pools and all that other stuff. So thank goodness I had gotten my face mask into some Harley-Davidson stores, talking with the motor clothes department, and they actually got my foot in the door here at Harley-Davidson in Scottsdale. So worked in the motor clothes department, commission only, selling clothes. I was the first guy to ever work in that position. I owe a lot to that position because it was extremely uncomfortable, but it taught me a lot about sales and leadership and different things like that. I did that. After doing that for about 4 months, they opened another new position for me, which was a social media manager. So I ended up doing that for that store. And Bob Parsons, which is the founder of GoDaddy, owns a few other motorcycle dealerships in the Valley, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞, which has BMWs, Ducatis, different other line of motorcycles. So I ended up taking on about 6 or 7 different dealerships, dealing with their Instagram, Facebook, Yelp, all that kind of stuff. So that was another lesson in just kind of juggling all that. I did the photos, a lot of video as well. But just remember being there and juggling that on top of, Ty would come into the store sometime and he would just have his brother's pool shirt on and just sweating his ass off. There'd be lube on his shirt and just, your hair was getting longer at some points too. It was just,
didn't have time to cut it.
No. Yeah. But, he was out there, working his ass off, learning the trade and working at the motor shop as well, really perfecting that craft. Always be forever grateful for him investing that time into that. So got to a point, we got more pools. Ty was able to shift into Brothers full time. He got a route. And then we actually had another gentleman come on to help out with pools. One day we had a meeting when I was a social media manager, and I knew that in about a month or so, we weren't really sure, but in about a month or so, I was going to be able to come on full time. And they wanted me to go through some training that was going to cost them money, but they wanted me to go through some type of training. And I just told them that, you know what, I don't think I'm the best person for that. And I really wasn't trying to say why, but they kept pushing me. And I was like, you know what, I'm not really sure I'm going to be here in a month. So,
say whatever you want.
The long story short, they ended up a couple hours later, I got a call that had to pretty much pack up all my stuff. And that was the last day for me. Cause they had a new rule that, if you even pretty much discuss that you're going to be leaving, that you're to leave that day. So ended up doing that, talked to Ty and I said, hey, I know we hadn't picked the day, but it's official now because I do not work over there anymore. Today's my first official day with Brothers. So yeah, it just kind of happened that way. And then,
long story short, we went from 0 to 400 pools in 4 years.
Yeah.
Did a lot of it through Yelp, social media. Greg is a very big part of that, coming from Harley's social media stuff, and learned a lot. So, we grew it very quickly through different platforms that people weren't really using at the time. It's a little bit more popular now, but 5 years ago, we were the first ones, I think, in Arizona to really tackle Yelp and approach it in a way where we could grow the business. And, he came to me and said, just give it time. And 3 months into it, man, it took off like a wildfire. So, we had, went from like 50 to 150 to 300 to like 450 in like these next 2-3 years. It was pretty insane.
That's awesome. Well, I have a follow-up question for you, Greg. You talked about leaving the DOD, which obviously you had a good retirement set up and probably good pay and all that. I have someone I'm consulting with right now that is talking about leaving their large company with a large pension, making, I think he said $80K a year. And he's struggling with that. So you made the jump. What were some difficulties changing from I don't mean to say cushy job, but something that basically is guaranteed, for life and has a good retirement, to the unknown, because that's ultimately what you did.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it came to a point where I just wanted to be happy. I wanted to live a happy life, and that meant a lot more to me, and had that fire inside that this would not fail. We're going to approach it correctly, brand the company correctly, we're good, honest men. We were raised right. I was kind of adopted into the family in high school. And, his parents and his brothers were like, I always say this, kind of like the Leave It to Beaver family. And his dad constantly told us to make good choices and that everything, has consequences, has good consequences. And if you make a bad choice, has bad consequences. And that always really stuck with both of us a ton. And I just knew that we branded our company well, and we just stuck with those values that we had grown up with, that we were going to be successful. So it's really in your mind, you want to be happy and you want to have a certain level of success, and you know that you're going to do whatever it takes to make that happen, then you're just going to do it. I had a young daughter. Ty had his youngest son at the time, and we knew for a fact the way we talked was this was going to work. We don't have a choice. No matter what we have to do, no matter how many hours we have to put into this, it's going to work. There is no failing. And even if we get to a point where we mess something up, it's just something that we're going to learn from, and it's not going to happen again. But to answer your question, it's not for everybody. And I think when I had made that decision, there were so many people around that were like, are you sure you want to do that? You've got a good thing. You've put so much time into all this training. And I was like, well, I want to own my own business, and I want to do it with my brother, Tyler. And I want to be happy. I want to wake up in the morning and know that the things that we do and the things that we start are the things that we're doing together. I want to make the rules. All the jobs that me and Ty have ever had, we took those things that we didn't like about them and we just flipped them around and made a company. We created a place that we would want to work at, and we took on pools that we would want to service. We just knew that our team would really appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you answering that on the fly. So why podcast? I know you guys have an episode talking about this, and I believe it's episode 16. But for the listeners who haven't tuned in, what made you guys decide to give up the successful brothers pool service business you all had to pursue podcasts?
Yeah. Going back a little bit, I actually listened to podcasts for about 8 or 9 years now. And I commuted about 120 miles a day when I worked for the DoD. And, slowly got burnt out on music. And I've always been kind of a curious individual, especially with education. I wasn't the greatest student in high school, didn't have much attention for it, and struggled with some personal issues with my family that kind of got me sidetracked quite a bit. The podcasts were just really cool because I got to listen to things that were specific to the things I was interested in. And if it was branding, being an entrepreneur, different things like that. Even back then, got to listen to that. And I also really enjoyed the stories. Listen to Mark Maron from the very beginning, which was a long time ago. And he interviewed a lot of successful people that grew up in a really, rough neighborhood, or they just didn't have much. And I always liked hearing those stories, and it was always really motivating. And I always felt like I could relate to that. And it was just really special, and use that as a form of education. We started Pool Chasers Podcast because we were listeners, and we enjoyed the information that was given through that platform. And we had always talked about the limited resources we had for learning things in the pool industry. Yeah, so we are actually on our way to Lake Havasu for a retreat for Brothers Pool Service. And we were actually listening to the Gary V audio experience. And I just remember we were just both looking at each other like, man, this is awesome. And we were going back and forth like, I wish there was something like this, for the pool industry where we could share a lot of this information in a fun way and kind of brand it the same way we did with Brothers. And, we just said, well, why don't we just start a podcast? And, that's really kind of where it was born. We set it, and then we started doing research on how we were going to do it. I mean, this is completely out of our kind of comfort zone, but, we were willing to kind of dive into it head first and learn what we needed to. But we really had no intentions of selling our pools and getting out of the business completely. But we got to the point where Pool Chasers was turning into a real business. And we had a ton of responsibility with both Pool Chasers and Brothers. And we felt like we had to choose, one or the other. So I felt like it was a great opportunity to help the industry and make a living, doing the podcast full time. So that's really what we decided to do.
We always look at it and remember those days in the very beginning, at least I do. And we talk about it a lot of when I was sitting at that computer and thinking of different angles and different ways that I could run this business and just having very little resources. I mean, David Van Brunt's videos were around to some degree, but he had just kind of, there was some stuff in there. A lot of it was just more about products though. So it didn't help so much with the business side of it. So we try to, and we always know that feeling when we walk into SEP and it just feels cold and nobody wants to share the information. There's all those things that run through our mind when we're producing this, that it's like, we constantly have meetings together and different types of topics. We have like a whole clipboard full of topics. There's, hundreds on there that we've really put together over the last year and so of like, hey, what would you want to hear if I was sitting at that desk again and I wanted to research this stuff? So really trying to take that angle at it and remember what it felt like, and then trying to give as much value as possible. So that's really, sharing information and bettering the industry is why we did it.
To be honest, it really felt like it was a little bit of fate. Like we were meant to do this, because even when we started our pool company, our backgrounds and the things that we did with our previous jobs was a lot of elements that most people in the industry don't have. And a lot of what I did, with the Department of Defense was, creating processes and, sticking to those processes and, being accountable for the things that you're going to do and being consistent with those things. And, Tyler, when he was working at the corporate place, he was emailing and having these calls with people that had, a lot of money and, just undergoing a lot of those negotiations and dealing with the upper management. He was a real artist when it came to dealing with certain situations in our business, when it came to, the strategic emailing and, some of the negative Yelp reviews and different things that would come through. So it was really meant to be. And there's obviously that pool service and repair element that we had to learn, which was always key, but it was nice that back end process, branding, communication, all that stuff was something that we were really comfortable with, because that is pretty much, all we had known for, 5 or 10 years.
So what were some of the challenges you guys had transitioning over from doing podcast full time? I'm sure it was a lot different to the daily hustle you guys used to have servicing the pools.
I think first and foremost, I had a little bit of video editing experience, but not much audio. And, we had to really figure out even how this process worked. And I know you probably have an idea because you produce it as well. But, we really wanted to do it the right way and give the best audio as content as possible, the best product as possible, and wanted to do it right from the beginning. So we did so much research, just like we were talking earlier, Eric. You just don't do something unless you research it 100%. We didn't want to do this unless we researched it 100%. So we figured it all out. It took months and months and months. We had that conversation in November. We didn't release the first episode until February. So, 3-4 months of running Brothers, but every ounce of time we had after that was put towards learning this craft and figuring out how it works, what mics to use, what soundboards to use, how to edit it, how to do all this stuff. And we've had plenty of bumps down the road, like, the mixer we went to, we recorded all that audio and it just sucked. We couldn't release it. And, we had different types of situations. We lost a whole entire podcast. It just disappeared through editing. So there's a lot of stuff. Our second episode we recorded without the guest mic turned on. We had to figure out, because that was the first time we ever had a guest and the mic wasn't turned on properly. So we had to
man.
That. Yeah. So there's a lot of bumps in the road trying to figure this out, but it's a lot of work, man. Every episode, as it takes a lot of work. Our episodes take anywhere from 20 to 30 hours total, from the research to the scheduling, to the recording, to the editing, to the social media aspect of it, to releasing it certain ways. It's just really all thought out, methodical process that we've laid out together. And, like Greg said, our backgrounds have really helped with that. But, I'll let Greg kind of touch base on some other points, but that was a big one for us. Just figuring out the whole entire process.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize the time it takes to do an episode. I mean, your guys are much longer than mine, but I mean, it's not as simple as just recording it and throwing it up. There's a lot of post stuff you got to do.
Yeah, and it means a lot to us to have the interviewee sound, the best they can sound. So even taking out a lot of the likes and ums and all those different things to make them sound the best they can be, and us as well. That way it's, if you're going to do something, do it the best you possibly can. But, kind of going back to a little bit more of the transition, but we wanted to make sure as well that the company that purchased our pools and took on our team was taken care of. And we just wanted to make sure that we set them up for success. So, daily we were, emailing them back and forth and kind of checking in with the technicians. We actually called every single one of our customers to let them know what was going on. I mean, there was a mass email that had gone out that pretty much told them that not much was really changing. They're going to have the same price, same technician on the same day. It was just going to be 𝐸𝐴𝐻 doing business, not Brothers Pool Service. But, we called each and every one of them. The other thing is just, and we're still doing a little bit of this, but coordinating times to visit our warehouse. And, there's a lot of assets in that warehouse that we had to liquidate because we don't really have any use for it anymore. So it was important to go over there and, deal with the vehicles. And, there's a lot of reoccurring overhead costs. It's not like you just sell pools and, the team's not there anymore and, all that sort of financial burden goes away. There's a lot of things that we did at Brothers that, we're still having to kind of dwindle down quite a bit. So we're still kind of in that transition period. The other thing is, we got Brothers to a point where it was really kind of working like a machine. So the better half of our day was already spent behind a computer and making calls and doing things like that. Mm-hmm. So we were getting already used to kind of being inside and not in the field so much, because we do understand from where we were and what we were trying to build, that we didn't need our job, and our place was not to be in the field, 24/7, putting out, fires. We did what we had to, but our duties was to make sure that we were being responsible and, taking care of, education and finances and new processes and, some of the new technologies that were being implemented into our industry and understanding that. So there were so many other things that, that had to be done. And that's the responsibility of an owner, and staying on top of, website SEO and all that other stuff. So we were kind of already used to that, but being cut out of it completely and not doing bids and things like that is definitely a weird transition. But it's really cool, the opportunities we have with builders, service companies and things like that. We've never burned a single bridge, so we always have opportunity to be out in the field with other companies and talk with them and help them out. We're going to be helping out, a company here at the end of the week just with some of their social media stuff. So it's really cool to kind of be there with their team and, help out.
Cool.
Yeah. I didn't want to forget, like, Kyle was a huge part of the whole entire transition. Without that, Greg and I would have had a very difficult time. So, Kyle spent a month putting together these spreadsheets to give them to 𝐸𝐴𝐻, and he's been a big part of the transition as far as taking care of assets. And without him, we have a very difficult time. So he's a huge part of this transition as well.
Well, thanks for sharing that. So, when I first started my business, I never thought I'd be at where I'm at today, in regards to having a YouTube channel, podcast, writing for magazines, et cetera. It just goes on and on. I never envisioned any of it. So what is something that you both never saw coming, and that happened by starting your podcast?
I mean, I think, what you're doing is amazing, and we're definitely in the same boat here, but just the impact the podcast is having on the industry blows our mind. And the way it's, helping people and businesses, we never imagined that it would be on the level that it's at today. And, we really take this podcast very serious and hold ourselves responsible and accountable for, getting the best information and motivation out there as possible. But I mean, when we go to the trade shows and we hear the stories about, how this episode changed your life, and, wives, girlfriends will email in and said, how they were about to check out of their business and they didn't want to do this anymore. But, listening to, the Pool Chasers podcast, and that, we call all of us that are in the pool industry pool chasers, and that they could, be a part of that community, just helped really motivate them to want to take their business to another level and just make it fun, and, fix their branding, fix their processes, take education seriously, and just having a place where we openly talk about this kind of stuff and the things that you should do, and having, having some successful, interviewees be on the show to talk about, what they did to get to where they were, is really motivating, I think, to a lot of people, because they might take similar steps into helping their business.
Yeah. And I think I had a pretty biased opinion. I don't know the right word to say, but I had a thought process in my head that a lot of the people in this industry didn't really care to make it better. And we had an idea of, out there of how it was going to grow, and definitely not this fast and this quick, but we had an idea that if we could put the right information out there, that it would really take off, which it has. But I've really, over the relationships we've built through this, have been the biggest, like, kind of, I don't want to say surprise, but the biggest, like, advantage of doing it, I guess, is I've just seen so many cool companies and got to know so many people throughout this, and not only the interviewees, but just like Greg said, through the trade shows, people coming up and explaining that they have been waiting for something like this. They want to be a part of something like this. And, it's really exciting, and it's made me look at this industry in a whole nother way than ever before, is that there are so many good companies out there. And when I didn't really see that as running Brothers Pool Service, I only saw some of the local stuff here, or what we saw through social media, but interacting with all these companies, there's so many good companies out there. And I think when you're running a pool business, like we were talking about earlier, like if you just answer your phone, you're doing these things, you're better than 90% of the companies. But there's like so many good ones out there too. So don't forget, don't get like, discouraged that you're the only one, because there is so many. And that was really cool to start seeing that, and all the relationships we have from building that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're describing untapped potential. You're finding all this untapped potential in the industry that really is longing for more there. But the bias or the viewpoint you were saying was it maybe isn't there, but now you're finding it is.
Yeah, the viewpoint's a better word for that, for sure. Yeah, my viewpoint has definitely changed on the industry quite a bit, and I'm excited to see. We're both excited to see, where it's going to be in a couple years after. What we're doing, what you're doing, others are stepping up and making these changes. And this industry is going to be different in 5 years for sure.
It's exciting. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Just glad to be a part of it, and looking forward to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah. We're super honored to be like the leaders of this, movement, or leaders of this community. And we take it very seriously, as Greg said, very honored to be a part of it for sure.
Definitely. So everything in life is a learning experience, right? So what's something you both have learned and that stuck with you from launching the podcast and interviewing your guests?
I think we didn't realize how big the industry actually was, because, when you're just doing service, that there's the builder sector and the manufacturers and things like that. And it's all kind of vague, but once we get into this and we just get, emails from every direction, and, you really start exploring the trade shows and different things like that, you really start to see how big, the industry really is, which is a cool thing, but it's also kind of a problem if that information is not out there about how to, make repairs on certain items, or, just different things like that. But it's been real eye-opening to see all the different companies that are in the industry, and just seeing the history and progression of the industry. Sometimes we don't really look at where we've been, and that's the history. It's really cool to see the industry of when swimming pools were, first started, and some of the first builders and servicemen, and, just seeing that overall progression. And we always talk about how people got into this business and things like that. And we've had some companies that have been around for, a really long time. And we just get to talking about things that we really off our radar. And it's really cool to really kind of get down that rabbit hole of information that people hold on to. And it's cool having this as a platform, because it's going to be nice, maybe 10, 15 years from now, where people can go back and listen to these episodes. And this is kind of like the history books where they're like, oh man, I remember when, that company was on and they talked about how they got started. And it's just, I like history. I know Ty likes history as well. So it's always a lot of fun to kind of go back in the archives and, how are we going to get to where we want to go if we don't know where we've been? Mm-hmm. Really cool to, talk with all these companies about that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Well, so what's the future hold for Pool Chasers? Is there an end game?
It's always developing, man. We started it with an idea and goals, and the goals have changed. The ideas have changed. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're just super excited to see what's going to happen with it. So as far as end game, we don't know that. We're always changing that. So as far as biggest future holds, I think one of the big things we're going to switch right now that people may not be aware of is we're actually going to go to weekly episodes now. Now that we're doing it full time, it gives us a little bit more time to produce these, because like I said, they take about 20, 30 hours. So producing wise, we weren't really able to do that running Brothers, but now we have the capability with Kyle's help and some other stuff we're doing. So we're about to switch it to weekly episodes. We're really about to dive into a lot of business type topics. So we've been doing more interviewee style stories, and we still will continue those, but we're going to do some episodes between Greg, Kyle, and I about business, and really starting from the beginning, going through even like how to start a business with LLC or choose which sole proprietorship to choose, all that, starting from like scratch and really walking through steps of like how to run a pool business and some different cool type of things I like experience, like how to deal with angry customers, and reading some of our customer emails and talking how we kind of countered that. Just really different business topics that are hard to find answers to. So we're going to do some of that and, really keep changing with the times, man, trying to figure out what's up and coming, what's coming out, what technology wise, what is, coming to the industry in the next 5 years, and trying to be the hub for information for all that. So
cool. Awesome. Well, I feel the industry's been very good to myself, you both as well, and so many other people. Is there, if anyone's tuning in that's hesitant about getting into the business, what would you say to them to help make them make the jump?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We talk about that quite a bit. Some of the things that we would have done differently in the beginning. Any advice that I think we could give is get educated and certified right away. Before you get into anything else, get into the books, talk with the teachers, all that different stuff, and get certified, because you very well might get into it and maybe it's something that you're like, I don't know if I really want to do this. I'm not sure I want to do that. But it also might spark a whole nother level of interest where it's like, dude, I can get down with this. I love chemistry and I like plumbing and I love the electrical aspect of it. And you just find all these different things that you might like, but it's a good thing to have the facts. That way, when you get into working for somebody or starting your own business, you can really vet those opinions that are going to come through, because those are always going to be there. And a lot of people talk about opinions as if they were facts. And there was a lot of people in our lives and companies in our lives when we first started that their opinions were false. And a lot of those opinions was really a shortcut and the easy way out. And it would have been nice to have been educated and gone to the, weekly, biweekly, monthly meetups that, some of these programs have, to find mentors, mentors that have similar values that you have, and kind of latch onto them so that you can ask them questions, because a lot of people are willing to answer your questions. And I know any questions that come our way, if you're willing to listen, we're going to tell you whatever it is that we possibly can that can help you out. But if there's anything that we can say, get educated, find yourself a good mentor within that education process, and maybe go work for another company. Be transparent. Tell them that you do have goals of, starting your own business maybe in a year or two. But that way you can see what it's like in running a business and using some of the routing software, and what it's like actually being in a backyard, because there's only so much textbooks can do. That goes to say for any other educational system, but everything really changes when you got to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and you got to make sure that you have all the right tools and chemicals and different things like that. And you're showing up to a backyard that could or not have a dog, and you have equipment that, is leaking, and, you're running into a green pool. You're just running into all these situations that might not have been explained all the way through in the textbooks. So you really have to learn how, you're communicating with your leader or the customer and all those different things. So I think that's a good path if you want to go on to getting into the industry, or, starting your own service and repair business.
And it's a really cool industry, man. It gives you a lot of opportunity to do your own thing. There's not a lot of cost buy-in. To do it right, you've got to spend a little bit more. But I mean, not very many businesses allow you to get in, with a dollar amount that this does, and gives you the same amount of freedom and control. And, it's a really cool job. Even if you work for somebody, just being able to ride in your own truck by yourself and being in a backyard and really just zoning out music or podcasts and just really doing your own thing. It's a pretty independent job and, business. It's really kind of a chill thing where, you get to be on your own and learn, and it's a really cool aspect of it, I think. And, it's something to be proud of too. And you get to build this from the ground up. It's an industry that's always growing, and it's changing rapidly right now, and you get to be involved in that. So there's a lot of cool aspects to running this type of business. It's service business. You get to, deal with clients and people, and there's a lot of good guys in this industry you can become part of. But as Greg said, I think we've really been preaching, like, maybe work for a company first, really try to figure out exactly how it is. And that way, you're being competitive and you're being an asset to the industry. You're not bringing it down. You might not bring it down on purpose, but if you don't know what to charge and you don't know what you're doing, and you're charging $80 a month, like, you'll realize shortly that that's not enough money, and you could have done some damage. But if you learn the right way, you can become a valuable asset to the industry, and we need more of those for sure.
Another big thing I want to touch on, because I think a lot of people need to hear this, is be patient. I think there's so many people that look on social media and things like that, and they're like, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to market it this way, and I'm going to do this. And make sure you're getting into this for the right reasons. Don't do it to impress people or things like that, because that's the worst move you can make. If that is kind of on your radar, it's understandable, but you need to be patient. You have to learn your craft. And you have to learn how to run a business the right way. And you have to do that with patience, because if you do that, that's a company that can really kind of stand the test of time. If you're getting into it for the wrong reasons, you're never going to get to that place that you want to be at. You got to take your time, be patient, and just take it day by day. Set yourself some goals and knock out those goals day after day, and just, go about it the right way.
I think being respectful too, when you're, trying to find a mentor, respecting that the time, all of us have taken years and years and years to figure out the craft. Don't come in just thinking you know everything. Really listen and be respectful to that person that you're looking to mentor you, because it's taken them years to develop. They don't want to hand over that secret in one day. It's time. I don't mind sharing. A lot of people don't mind sharing, but it's got to be done the right way, where it's respectful. And, there's a, like Greg said, be transparent with one another, where help one another out.
Definitely. That's all great advice. And to sum everything up, the great thing about the pool business is you can get as much out of it as you want or as little as you want. It's completely up to you. And there's not a lot of industries that allow you to do that. So I would definitely urge anyone wanting to get in the pool industry to do it, but do it right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So-
And we really respect what you have going on. I know you were recently on our podcast as well. And we talked a lot about this, but we really respect and admire your approach from the very beginning. You were hungry and patient, and you just followed that hustle all the way through, and you deserve being on that. I think what was the PSN list?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you really deserve being on that list. You don't want to come to the realization when it's too late, because unfortunately we got to the point where the phones wouldn't stop ringing and the emails wouldn't stop coming through. And you get to a point where it goes from being a little bit inconvenient with education to being almost impossible finding that pocket of time to do it. You don't want to have to go backwards if you don't have to. If you can kind of stick it out and rough it out at your 9-to-5 job and get certified and, watch, videos like yours and David Van Brunt and listen to maybe some of our podcasts.
No, definitely listen to your guys' podcast.
Yeah, definitely. But those are some small things that you can do to really prepare yourself for, getting ready for the industry. Because you really need to understand that it's not, I don't want anybody to think that this is easy, because it's not easy.
Nope.
It's not just, if you're looking at this like, oh man, I'm just you can charge somebody $100 to, brush and skim a pool. It's much more complex than that. If you want to build a company that is going to, like I said, stand the test of time, you've got to have an excellent CRM, communication. You have to have values, a mission statement, a website, a Yelp, social media presence. To be that kind of person, it takes a lot of strategic planning, and it's not easy. And you need to be aware of that before you go in head first.
And it's not as simple as just cleaning pools. There's so much time that's needed after the hours doing all that stuff to make everything work seamlessly.
Definitely.
So, well, where can people find you guys? They want to be a guest on the show, or if they just want to tune in, where do they go?
You can email us at poolchasers.info@gmail.com. You can visit our website at poolchasers.com. You can visit us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All of it is at Pool Chasers. We were really lucky that every single one of those was available. So really easy to find. You can look up #Pool Chasers on each one of those platforms as well. And you will see us and our fellow pool chasers sharing all the fun stuff that they have.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys being on the show. It's an honor to have you guys, and keep up the good work. And I look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Thank you, Eric. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
All right, guys. Take care.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's so cool to see them being so dedicated to the podcast that they sold their pool business. They're doing such a fantastic job, and I wish them nothing but success in the future. I'm sure we'll be doing some collaborating in the future, so stay tuned. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we continue to share knowledge with the pool listeners out there. Please head over to Patreon to support me at patreon.com/Chlorine King. Have a great evening, everyone, and I look forward to our next episode. Take care.
That's all for tonight, and thanks for tuning in. Please send any comments or ideas, how-to and guest appearance requests, and product review suggestions to eric@chlorinekingpools.com. Remember, if life piddles in your pool of dreams, just add some chlorine and keep swimming. See you next time.
And don't forget to check out my friend Robert's YouTube channel, Clean Pool and Spa, full of great information will surely help you take care of your pool. Link is below in the description.